What did Mayor Johnson know, and when did he know it? This week, the mayor claimed he was not aware of the extensive complaints of harassment and a toxic work culture lodged against longtime confidant and former deputy press secretary Ronnie Reese. Not aware, that is, until journalists filed a Freedom of Information request to make the voluminous personnel files public.
The system that I inherited established a process that did not provide full disclosure of everything that was in that personnel file until there was a FOIA request.
But the complaints go all the way back to when he took office in May of 2023, and the files show the mayor's chief of staff, Cristina Pacione-Zayas, trying to handle the concerns with a suggestion of holding peace circles. So color at least one alderperson skeptical that nobody could have told the mayor himself.
When you look at the documentation, it's pretty clear to me that the mayor knew about it or should have known about it and should have done something immediately.
And all this comes as 4 former employees under Reese spoke out about getting fired and put on the city's do not hire list, they say, because they spoke out about Reese's alleged behavior, something that jeopardized their careers.
It completely ruined a future that I would have. And so it's not fair to me, and for the people behind me, it's not fair for them either.
Those employees have since been taken off the do not hire list, but the damage has already been done. And a text message uncovered by the Chicago Tribune reveals that Mayor Johnson knew at least as early as late October, more than a week before Reese was let go. Who is that text message to? Johnson's close political ally, powerful Chicago Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates. Quote, Ronnie, exclamation mark, call me. Message from the elders. The Tribune reports that neither CTU or the mayor's office elaborated. You can bet reporters' curiosities are piqued right now, and we'll be digging for any other clues that shed light on what exactly happened. Perhaps that's why the mayor has been less than cordial with the press lately.
Let's ask it this way. Do you wish for Pedro? So go ahead, ask it.
Is it still your wish to replace?
What do you mean, still my wish? You're making an assumption here respectfully, okay? So if you ask it right, I'll answer it.
Around nearly 700 or 2/3 of principals and assistant principals at CPS have signed on to a letter asking the Board of Ed to hold off on any leadership decisions. What do you think of that letter and that call?
I actually don't think much of it.
Could you elaborate?
Nope. I don't think much of it at all.
In terms of how you're weighing the concerns of...
Is this your follow-up question? Be careful, because I've already answered it. I'm just saying, if you do it again, I'm gonna count that as your follow-up question.
For the record, that's a good question from a dogged WBEZ journalist, one that clearly got under the mayor's skin. That, of course, is another kerfluffle the mayor wishes he could make disappear, firing CPS CEO Pedro Martinez and allowing his hand-picked school board to give CTU all of the goodies that it is asking for. But that drama goes on, as does the drama over what the mayor knew and when. Stay tuned. And that's our opening shot.
Coming up on Paris on Politics.
The drama over the future of CPS takes a new twist. Mayoral runner-up Paul Vallis weighs in. With trans issues causing controversy nationwide, a local trans elected official makes history in Cook County. And Tiffany Henyard on the verge of losing one of her 2 government jobs. Paris on Politics is next.
This is Paris on Politics from Fox 32 Chicago.
Welcome to Paris on Politics, where we go behind the headlines and beyond the spin. The drama over the future of Chicago public schools took a new twist this week as CPS CEO Pedro Martinez declined an offer from the board to buy out the rest of his contract. This is the latest salvo in the maneuverings from Mayor Johnson and the Chicago Teachers Union to oust Martinez during contentious labor negotiations. Business as usual at today's Chicago Board of Education meeting. Speculation swirled that the mayor's brand new interim board could vote to fire Martinez today. But the vote never came. Instead, board members asked Martinez about things like the district's contingency plan should incoming President Trump cut federal funding for education.
What is the risk of grants that we have always taken for granted that could be changed in a way that is very negative to our district? And so that is something we're analyzing now.
Meanwhile, the district's CFO laid out the already steep financial challenges that lie ahead.
We ended fiscal year 24 with $66 million of cash in the bank. So if you look at the size of our budget, in fiscal year 25, that was 3 days worth of cash. 3 days.
CPS leaders have said the CTU's contract demands could cost a whopping $10 billion over 4 years. This week, CTU says they've moved off their initial ask for 9% yearly raises in favor of 5 to 6%. The union has sought 13,000 new positions as well. CPS's counterproposal is 4 to 5% raises. Both CTU and the Board of Education have expressed desire to get a new contract before late January, when Trump takes the oath of office and a new hybrid elected school board gets seated. Yesterday, a defiant Mayor Johnson expressed frustration with the lack of progress.
Ain't nobody in this city, no one in this position has ever had more standing in public education than this mayor. I've taught in our schools, or send my children to these schools, and I'll be doggone if someone tries to reduce my power after the people of Chicago voted me to transform this city.
And joining us now with reaction is Paul Vallis, of course, former CEO of CPS and two-time mayoral candidate in the recent cycle, losing by a small margin to current mayor Brandon Johnson. Mr. Vallis is now a policy advisor with the libertarian-leaning Illinois Policy Institute. Good to see you.
Nice to have me.
All right, so when you look at the constant maneuvering to remove CPS CEO Pedro Martinez, is this a power grab from CTU to get someone in there that'll do their bidding?
You know, it is, but it's also a temper tantrum. I think Stacey Davis Gates, the union president, promised her supporters, particularly her far left supporters, the world, 9% pay raises a year over the next 4 years. Investments in climate change, support for the homeless, et cetera.
13,000
That's
positions.
right. Yeah, 13,000 new positions. And incidentally, the school district already has one position, full-time position for every 7.5 kids. So you have to understand. And they have 22,000 non-teaching employees in the Chicago Public Schools. Incidentally, that's 10,000 more non-teaching employees than you have Chicago police officers.
What they're saying is they want investment in neighborhood schools to be at the level of the top quality schools, art teachers, librarians, social workers. What's wrong with that?
Well, first of all, when you have one employee for every 7.5 students, the fundamental question is, why don't they have that now? Look, only about 54% of the money that goes to the Chicago Public Schools ever finds its way into the local schools. You have over 7,500 administrators and central office employees and regional employees and what they call citywide staff who are not necessarily assigned every day to the schools. And again, so the schools are getting shortchanged by the central offices when it comes to the allocation of additional resources. But look, Stacey Davis Gates wants more members. She wants more union dues because that translates into more political power. As I mentioned, since 2019, since COVID, despite the fact that the schools lost 10% enrollment and saw a 46% increase in per pupil funding, they've added 9,000 additional employees.
And a lot of that increase coming from federal COVID relief money that we know is running out now, which is part of the reason that they're facing a giant budget deficit even without a new contract. Martinez has said no to this ask for a $300 million short-term loan that CTU wants, that the mayor wants to help fund this shortfall. Is that the right move to say no to that?
Oh, absolutely. And plus, it's not going to be nearly enough. They probably need about $1 billion a year to fund the contract. Even the contract that might be negotiated that reflects what the school district has offered. Their demands, the teacher union demands, exceeded $10 billion. The school district's counteroffer will cost taxpayers over the next 4 years $3 billion. And where's the money going to come from there? I mean, clearly, the school district is going to raise property taxes again this year, as they have had in past years.
Well, and there's only a limit to how much they can raise.
That's right.
They're at that limit. They raise it at the limit every year. So legally, they can only raise it so much. They can't just go above that.
I think their objective here is to pass a contract. Clearly, even the district's contract is not going to be affordable. That's going to really put pressure on the city to provide more money. Of course, they're going to try to raid the tax increment financing dollars. And incidentally, that's kind of a short-term solution, not a long-term solution. And if you remember, I think Gates and CTU leadership really felt that Pritzker was going to come to their rescue.
And he said repeatedly, there is no more state money.
That's right. And he said no, because they were asking him for another $1 billion. And, of course, for him to give Chicago Public Schools $1 billion, he's got to put about $4 billion into the formula.
What do you make of the fact that the mayor's handpicked school board resigned? He quickly, hastily appointed this interim board of supporters, and we know there was a scandal around one of the members that had to leave.
Right.
We have an elected school board or a hybrid board coming in January. The ones that are elected already won their races, and they're saying, hey, don't do anything big. We're taking over. Do you agree that this interim board shouldn't do anything?
I agree that the interim board should not do anything. I think they should wait until they have the fully elected board. Let me point out that the teachers union ran 10 candidates for those board seats. I think they won 3 or 4. So I think they fair that when the remaining board members are up for election, they delayed the election of the full board until after Johnson's first term. And so hopefully, or his last term, I should say, or his only term.
The current term.
The current term, sorry about that. But anyway, I'm not trying to make predictions. But the bottom line is they don't want to do that. They want to control events. What is going to happen is they're going to pass a contract that is unaffordable. And then the pressure is going to be on the state, as it has been so much in the past, and the pressure is going to be on the city to come up with more money. The state
that has a $3 billion budget deficit.
That's right, a $3.2 billion deficit, a projected $22 billion 5-year deficit. So they're not going to have the money. And let me point out that the city itself is facing a massive budget deficit. And right around the corner next year, the CTA is passing the mother of all budget deficits. That their deficit after COVID money runs out will equal about 25% of the budget.
Oh, by the way, you have an incoming president that has talked about slashing lots of government programs and federal funding, much of which could come to cities like Chicago.
Yeah,
this is bad news fiscally on every front. And
a president they're already attacking before he's ever taken office. I mean, at the end of the day, imagine where the state and the city would have been without the massive infusion of COVID money since 2019.
I want to, you came within 3 or 4 percentage points of becoming mayor here. This mayor is currently polling at about 15%. Extremely unpopular. Does that give you impetus to maybe want to seek out that office?
No, not necessarily. Look, I want to see which candidates are going to emerge. What's really going to be important is that we get people, that does not be a beauty contest, and we really scrutinize the candidates to know where the candidates have been on issues like school funding, pension reform, public safety, et cetera, and transparency and honesty in government, and what their specific recommendations are. But there's going to be a flood of candidates, and I'm certainly not contemplating a race.
All right, not contemplating right now. We have many years to watch that flood of candidates declare and run. And Paul Vallis, I should mention that we did invite CTU President Stacey Davis Gates. We did not hear back. Paul Vallis, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up on Paris on Politics.
A local trans elected official makes history in Cook County.
Lou, what you doing?
Hey, Caitlin, I'm looking for this stream everyone's talking about.
Fox Local?
Yeah.
Get me. App Store, download Fox Local, open it, pick Chicago, boom.
Oh, that was easy. Hey, Paris. Hey, I got this stream on my phone finally.
I'm on there.
Everyone's on this thing.
Now you can watch Paris on Politics anytime, anywhere.
Hey, Anita, I'm on Fox Local.
I know, Lou. I watch you on Bears Blitz on Fox Local.
Fox Local. This is big stuff.
Glad I could help.
Congresswoman Sarah McBride made history nationally this year, the first ever trans member elected to the U.S. House. Back home, Precious Brady Davis also made history as the first black trans woman elected to office in Cook County. She was initially appointed by the governor, recently ran and won election to the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. And Precious Brady Davis joins us now. Welcome to Paris on Politics.
Thank you for having me, Paris. Congratulations on your new show.
I appreciate it. Congratulations on your election victory. The first black trans woman elected to office in Cook County. What does that distinction mean to you?
When people see themselves reflected in the arc of history, they say, I can be that too. When we see the attacks against the trans community across the country, I think it's even more important. I think it's important to show young people how high they can soar. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, raised in foster care, and so I serve as a beacon that no matter where you start, you can serve in public office.
And the public office you've chosen is the Water Reclamation District, which is the old sanitary district. You're in charge of the wastewater and keeping the water clean. Why that office? Why did you choose to go for that office?
For 15 years, I've dedicated my career to serving initiatives that support diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it's working at Center on Halstead supporting LGBTQ community, working at Columbia College Chicago supporting education, or working at the Sierra Club for almost a decade. The Metropolitan Water Reclamation District is an environmental agency. It was started 130 years ago, reversing the course of the Chicago River, protecting the source of our drinking water, Lake Michigan. And so I was inspired to continue that environmental legacy.
And we should mention that you're the executive director at the Center on Halstead.
I am the chief strategy officer.
Chief strategy officer. Okay, got it. So your background, you found community in Chicago, you say. You were born and raised in foster care in Nebraska. When did you realize your identity, your true identity? Tell us about that journey.
From a very early age, I knew that I was a gender nonconforming child. I remember telling my grandmother when I was 4 years old that I was a little girl. And I remember my grandmother telling me, don't ever say that ever again. And throughout my childhood, I can look at moments where I was transcending the binary, where I would accidentally wear my sister's shoes, where I would find myself playing with Barbies. I didn't want to play with trucks. And so when I could find my community in college, when I learned about the great history of the LGBTQ community, I had never learned anything about these great heroes of history, Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, that there was a great trans history that I could be a part of. I saw myself in the annals of history, and I decided to transition.
And we mentioned in the beginning, trans issues have been sort of a political firestorm nationwide. In Congress, Sarah McBride, Congresswoman from Delaware, the first trans member of Congress, Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina, has authored a resolution to ban Congresswoman McBride from women's restrooms and ban any non-biological woman from women's restrooms. What do you make of the controversy going on around that?
I think that it's a distraction. I think that we saw this election won on the backs of punching down against trans people. I think that currently that Republicans, that there is not a standard of integrity, of creating a future for all Americans. We as trans people, we are part of the American dream too. We are a part of democracy. And I think that we want the same things that every other Americans want. I think we want a safe place to lay our heads at night. I think we want to walk down the street and feel safe without risk of violence. I think we want a good job. I think we want good economic opportunity, good schools in our communities. And I feel it's a distraction, and it's red meat to the base.
And do Congresswomen like Nancy Mace, do they have a legitimate point when they say, well, what we need is to protect women from biological males that might have nefarious intentions if they're going to use a women's restroom?
Trans people have always been here, and they always will be. The Katoi of Thailand, the Hydra of India, the Two-Spirit Native American people. And so I think that when you look at American history, trans people are there. And to erase us from the fabric of history, I find that deeply disturbing, and I find it's a distraction.
Do you fear for your safety in Cook County and Chicago, or do you feel that this is a pretty tolerant place?
I think that Chicago is a very inclusive community, and obviously by the voters who supported me, over 100 million people said yes. We want Precious to serve us at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District as commissioner, right? And it's not just about me being trans, but that I'm qualified at the end of the day. And I was out there talking to people about protecting the source of our drinking water, Lake Michigan. And so I feel very safe in Cook County, but that doesn't mean that there aren't trans people who are at risk, because there are high rates of violence that occur to trans people.
All right, you've got your work cut out for you at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, because I want to swim in the river one day. So let's get the river cleaned up. Precious Brady Davis, caucus. Congratulations and thank you for joining.
Coming up on Paris on Politics.
Tiffany Henyard on the verge of losing one of her government jobs.
The viewer in the morning really needs to have a good feeling for what it's going to be like for the rest of the day.
I've got 3 kids myself, so I set out their clothes Monday through Friday, which you can do too based on our 7-day forecast. The last thing that you want to have to think about is, what is my kid going to be wearing to school? What do I need in the morning?
Having grown up here, having spent about 30 years in this market predicting the weather, you not only get really familiar with the weather, but with the needs of your audience. And that's what it means to be the weather authority.
This weekend, kick back and catch up with Fox 32 on Fox Local. Recap the week's must-know news.
This weekend, going to be dealing with a lot of closures downtown.
Relive Fox 32's best.
He's not just coming at you, he's coming at you with something that he just caught.
Plus the latest political and sports buzz.
Is this a role that you like, kind of going on the attack?
There's plenty of excitement here.
Watch live or anytime on demand. Weekends at Fox 32 on Fox Local. Download now on these streaming services.
Firebrand Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard is on the verge of losing one of her jobs, that of Thornton Township Supervisor. That's because a rival politician called for a caucus instead of an election and won. Our Nate Rogers sets it up.
What was the process supposed to be?
The process was followed and it came out the way it was supposed to.
Here's how it all started. More than 200 people outside waiting to enter Homewood Flossmoor's Park District.
But the people who were attending the party are the ones who was in there voting. That's unfair to us residents standing out here in the cold.
Inside, the auditorium was already packed with Senator Napoleon Harris supporters who had been allowed to enter beforehand. I heard you say no other candidates were eligible. What does that mean? What happened?
Well, what happened was they didn't submit the required paperwork, they didn't have a full slate, and they were deemed ineligible to run.
They didn't, meaning who?
Whoever they is.
Harris is talking about current Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard, who expected to be added to the slate as well.
Napoleon, how you feel? Don't let the people be heard. You ain't let the people be heard.
We spoke to Henyard in an exclusive interview hours earlier. Tonight's caucus, led by Senator Harris, was to name candidates for supervisor, clerk, trustee, assessor, and highway commissioner.
I think it's fair to the public to allow the committeeman to host a caucus, whereas he wants to run in. I think it should have been left to the voters like it always has been.
Henyard calling tonight's power move illegal.
Guys, have a good night, eat the food, and be merry.
Napoleon Harris, the committeeman, the senator, has them stalling because he is in bed with them. He's their puppet master. He's telling them, don't go to board meetings, wait on the insurance.
As many questions remain about the township's future, cheers from Harris's supporters and outrage from Henyard's supporters.
I think it's absolutely absurd that you have all these people out here. You have the seniors out here.
Total voter suppression.
Absolutely.
How you win, stand on your record, what you're going to do for the people, what you've already done, and let the people elect you. You can't do stuff like this.
And joining us now is an attorney representing State Senator Napoleon Harris, Bert Odelson, who has also represented Dolton Village trustees opposed to Tiffany Henyard. Bert Odelson, why a caucus instead of a primary election here?
The township committeeman, Senator Harris, decided he wanted the people to participate and choose the next Democratic candidate for supervisor. And a caucus is the oldest, most established way of getting all the people involved of the particular organization to nominate a candidate of their choice. Therefore, he called for a caucus.
Tell me how this caucus works.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It goes back to the 1800s. It's our most basic form of government, where the members of the organization, this time the Democratic organization, gathers its regular members together in order to vote on representatives for particular offices. The party itself sets the rules for their members of the organization. This is really not a vote of all the people. It's a vote of the organization. Republicans do it, Democrats do it. And other established political parties do it also, but commonly Democrats and Republicans. It's truly a vote of the people.
All right, well, on Wednesday night, we spoke with attorney Carrie Lynn Krafthaver, who said she's not sure that this followed the letter of the law. Let's take a listen.
I have reviewed the caucus rules that they employed yesterday, and I know that they weren't followed because one of them requires everybody who's there, who's voting, to sign in and sign an affidavit attesting that they're qualified under the rules set forth by the election code and also by the caucus. I know there were people present there that didn't sign those affidavits who voted anyway, so that shows me there's a flaw. I know there were candidates for other offices who are not members of the Democratic Party who are running in this election as independent candidates for office in Dolton Township. I've heard they were present and participating. So what it sounds like is this was a little bit of a free-for-all.
Okay, Bert, your reaction to that, she's saying she doesn't believe it was legal.
Well, number one, she wasn't there. So that's a pretty giant leap that a responsible lawyer wouldn't take. Unless you're there and you see what's going on and you see the forms and you're able to examine the forms, then you can make a determination. She wasn't even there, number one. Number two, she's represented Tiffany Henyard in the past, and I don't have really much more to say about her. The fact that she has represented Tiffany, and maybe she's representing her now, I'm not sure. But a responsible lawyer wouldn't make accusations without having all of the facts in front of them, and she has no facts. She wasn't there.
And the facts, as you see it, is this followed the letter of the law 100%.
100%. My office did 5 different caucuses on Tuesday night. We've been doing this, I hate to give my age away, for close to 50 years. So we prepare the rules according to what the committeemen and the executive committee ask us to prepare. We make sure the rules comply with the state statute, and then we roll, and we let the people decide, which is exactly what happened on Tuesday night.
And so Tiffany Henyard is saying that State Senator Harris did it this way because he wouldn't have been able to beat her in an election. Is that what it is? Is that true?
It couldn't be farther from the truth. There was over 400 people at this caucus who overwhelmingly supported Senator Harris. Tiffany Henyard is running for mayor of Dolton, and the people in Dolton will speak loudly on April 1st in regards to her mayorship there. Now the Democratic Party has slated who they wanted to run for supervisor, someone responsible like Senator Harris.
All right, Bert Odelson, representing State Senator Napoleon Harris, who is now the elected Thornton Township Supervisor. Thank you so much for joining us. And that's our show for this frigid week in Chicago. Stay up to date on all the news and information you need to know on air and online, and of course at the Fox Local app. Stay warm until we see that 50-degree Sunday temperature. So long, everyone.